Yo, 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 what's happening, everybody? Welcome back. How are you? I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Glad to have you here. This is a bonus episode. Mikey joined me and we read a short piece and had a 2-hour discussion about it. The piece is called What is Intelligence by Nick Land, found in Xenosystems. It's a short piece, but it's very dense. There's a lot going on, and I think it does a lot of work to clarify Nick's position on intelligence. And I think it's important, and I think it has far-reaching implications. And I think it's a worthwhile discussion to be having. So that's what this is. It's a bonus episode. Later this week, I'll be reading some other of Land's work. That'll happen live on 3 Billion Nance's YouTube channel, so that'll be really cool. Hopefully we'll have some friends along for that. But for now, here is a bonus Nancecast episode. It's a reading of What is Intelligence with Mikey and myself. So enjoy. Thanks for dropping in, and I hope you stick around.
It's the best podcast ever! Welcome, you're listening to the Nance! Yes!
And we're recording. What's up, dude?
What's up? How goes it?
Yeah, I'm just chilling, basking in the warm golden glow of the nice sun.
I know it's some Pacific sunrise vibe right now we got going. Not the neon
dude.
Vaporwave. But I like this. I feel like we should be at the beach with Bahama Mamas.
I mean, it is definitely like we're chilling. We're just kind of laid back. We're chilling. And we're going to read a little bit and discuss a little bit. We just released 2 badass episodes. In total, it's like 5 hours of discussion, talking about AI, intelligence, acceleration, ideology, psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, psychotherapy. That's because I was watching The Traitors, which is a reality TV show where they like.
I don't think you've told me about this one.
So, it's fucking top tier TV, dude. I fucking love this show.
What's it on?
It's on Peacock. So they're all in a group, and there's faithfuls and traitors, and it's basically like a murder mystery game, and they have to find out who is the traitors and who's murdering people every night. And they have it's I love this show, dude.
Clue. It's like Clue.
It's like Clue. It's like Among Us.
I love it.
It's like Mafia. I'm obsessed with this show. There's a UK version, a US version, a New Zealand version, and I'm currently watching the Australia version.
Okay.
But
now make me check it out.
One of the contestants is a clinical psychotherapist, and she said it about 27 times last night in the episode I watched. So that's why I slipped and said psychotherapy instead of analysis.
Oh, good.
But yeah, so in the last week, we've released I think some pretty in-depth discussion, but we keep coming back to some bangers. Yeah, dude. We keep coming back to intelligence. What even is intelligence? That's
going to be a question we keep coming back to over and over again. We're territorialized on that question for a bit.
Yeah. Well, and I think so as it stands right now, I will reject intelligence if we're just going to stick with all the kind of answers to that question and all the solutions to that problem that have come so far. I'll reject intelligence and say, well, I don't care about intelligence. I'm talking about something else. Because it seems to be the case that intelligence always comes back to this kind of positive feedback loop and this ability to play games and this goal-oriented modality, problem solving. And that's important, but there's something else going on at the core of the subject That, I mean, we're this distinction, mintelligence and intelligence, like that's what we're talking about. There's this surplus. There's something else going on in intelligence that mintelligence doesn't have, can't contain. And that's really what we want. But intelligence is also important because we are creatures who can act in goal-oriented ways upon the world. We can solve problems. That's what has given us this ability to have the luxury of subjectivity, is that kind of like foundation of just metabolic problem solving ability. So intelligence is important. It's not like I want to throw it away and reject it, but I want what we have as subjects. I don't just want 1 + 1 = 2.
Which is something more than what an IQ test measures. Right. I mean, here's the thing. Isn't, like, if we want to expand this word intelligence, isn't being able to love a form of intelligence?
I mean, yeah, to be able to respond in a like additive way to people who are good for you, and you like a constructive relationship, like, because once again, we have the tendency to maintain relationships, manic pixie dream pussy, that it's very powerful. We've had dysfunctional relationships, but when you get a functional relationship that's constructive and that's wholesome and that's good for you, like, some people don't have that ability. Some people just cannot maintain constructive, appropriate relationships.
And some people are dipshits when it comes to how to deal with other people's emotions, how to navigate implicit social dynamics. And so I don't know, like, but again, I think if we bring it back to love and emotions, those are the type of things Baudrillard has in mind when he's saying, like, humans have more forms of intelligence than computers have, which is computation. But the thing is, in what we're going to read today by Nick, it's a short blog post Nick Land wrote on his Xenosystems blog called "What is Intelligence?" It's also, you can find it in this book, Xenosystems. And it's called "What is Intelligence?" Let's see where it's at exactly in the book.
Yeah, my PDF does not have any page numbers or pagination or any, so I had to scan.
Yeah,
I
know. I was in the same thing today dealing with it.
I think it's near the front of the book.
It's page 133 is
okay.
where it starts. And guys, like, okay, so it starts page 133, and then
it ends on 134.
Yes. And it goes to the back here.
But it is dense, dude. This is compressed. This is the Nick Land we know and love.
This is philosopher land, and it's super concentrated thought, where so much is being said in such a small amount of words. It's just a burst of, like, a whole book is tucked away in this.
Oh, indeed.
Like, he could write a whole book on this.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I was looking at this, I was like, man, this is going to be one of the core theoretical contributions in this book, just because there's so much here. And it is one of these pieces you could go read it and walk away and not be changed at all and have learned nothing. Or you could take this one page of theory and sit with it every single day for a week and start to get tapped into what he's saying and go, holy shit, this is huge, far-reaching theorization here. So this question of what is intelligence that we're just going to keep wrestling with, I think this is one of the pieces we're probably going to keep coming back to this, because even with our exegesis today, we're still just getting oriented with this text. And I think whether we agree or disagree, it's going to become a constant reference point for us going forward.
Yeah, and I kind of just wondered, the people who are on the side that we are opposed to look, I said that awkwardly because it's an awkward sentiment. I don't know exactly what I mean by that, but the people who just want to reject our position outright and say, no, this utilitarian logic is really all that matters. I wonder if they read the way where they will just read these 6 paragraphs once and then kind of think they have this functional understanding of it and take it and go, or if they would sit and tarry with it too. Because in some of the conversation surrounding our 5 hours of conversation on this topic, I've come up against people not even engaging with things I said and things you said, and people are like knocking down straw men, and it's like, well, yeah, but if you actually listen to the conversation we had, we addressed that, like we said that. So the fact that you were responding to me with this thing shows me either I wasn't clear enough, or maybe you weren't paying enough attention, or maybe there's something else going on where it is like this passable functional grip of the conversation serves in the place of like a deeper understanding. And look, again, I'm not trying to pump us up. I'm also not trying to talk shit about people, but it's one of the constant frustrations where it's like, you guys aren't listening to what we're saying. And I wonder if it has to do with that attunement to theory, where it's like, oh yeah, you read the thing one time and then you have a functional understanding of it, and then it's good to go. And it's like, no, these concepts are very dense. They must be unpacked. You must really sit with them and kind of understand what you think about them. I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like this is one of these papers that's similar to someone reading Freud, where they think they could have it on the first go.
Yeah.
And they don't understand they're not absorbing it. But yeah, I mean, I think this whole distinction we're using between intelligence and mintelligence, I think probably look, I mean, I know that people have thought about the differences between machinic intelligence and humans, that they have. I don't know how many of them have approached it from the angle we're approaching it from, where we're drawing from these theories of the subject from continental philosophy, and then taking that in and bringing it into conversation with the main reference points in AI theory. So I understand, like, this is for a lot of people probably relatively new theoretical terrain. People who are into land understand it a little bit because he was a Deleuze-Guattarian, so they know if they're going to understand what he's doing, they're going to have some familiarity with D&G. But ultimately, I think a lot of people, if you're on the AI theory side, you're not probably familiar with a lot of our philosophical reference points. And if you know the reference points philosophically, you're probably not that familiar though with Bostrom and Kurzweil and Alejandro.
That's the thing.
Goertzel, right?
It's been severed. The sciences have been taylorized, and like we're assembly line theorists now. Like people go into this hyper specialization, and it's very unfortunate. And yeah, in the media and influencers and stuff like that, like you have a lot of people who talk about one thing and you have a lot of people who talk about one other thing, and there do seem to be just too few people who are trying to have it all. But we're trying to have it all, dude. I'm sorry. I believe in modernity. I believe that I can self-actualize and become smart. That was what they told me when I was a kid in school. If you just apply yourself, You can go wherever you want to go, and if you just try real hard, you can be whatever you want to be. And I believed it, and we're trying to have it all. It seems like too many people are satisfied to just settle for what's up on offer, and what's up on offer is this hyper specialized. Well, either you're a math guy or you're a humanities guy. Ultimately, like, it comes down to that division.
Yeah, but even in philosophy, you know how hard it is to actually get a Heideggerian scholar to come talk to a Lacanian scholar, or a Lacanian scholar to talk to a Deleuze scholar. It's like, guys, it shouldn't be this difficult to get you fuckers to talk to one another. But because the thing is, we're drawing from all these philosophers, and that's almost the difference being with underground theory, is that we have no problem reading all these different theorists and getting more of a general overarching view of the relationships between these thinkers than a lot of professional academics, because they become siloed in Heidegger studies or Deleuze studies or Lacan studies, whatever. And so, yeah, we've always been about trying to figure out how to get these different philosophical perspectives to dialogue with each other, because I think each one of these guys, go down the list, I'm sorry, Marx, Kierkegaard, Sartre, Merleau-Ponty, Heidegger, Deleuze, Derrida, Baudrillard, they all have something really special to show us. And I don't like this special, and people could say I do specialization because I primarily operate with Lacan and Zizek, but that's also because for the work I'm doing, I get the most conceptual mileage out of using those theories. But I spent years studying Heidegger and Marx, and they're always in the background, always popping up. And so it's not like I just focus on those guys. And so I think it's basically, long story short, we are geared more towards generalism than specialization.
Yeah. So
you want to get into this?
Yeah, I figure we just read it and go. And I mean, there's so much going on. Yeah, we should start, because if we don't start soon, it's going to go forever. So,
and as I told you before we started, I am going to go see Mission Impossible 8 tonight.
8,
which I think the main villain is still the entity from Mission Impossible 7. So I need to know what kind of intelligence the entity has. So Dick Land, you gotta help me understand Mission Impossible 8.
All right.
No, that's not what I signed up for.
Yeah. But you know what? He probably prefers James Bond to Mission Impossible.
You think so?
I'd imagine so. James Bond still has some class. Like, Mission Impossible is uber American.
Wouldn't Land rather be American than British?
Maybe that's a good point. There's, you know what? There's probably like a Chinese James Bond variant that is.
That would be it.
Yeah. All right.
Half machine. It's cyborg.
Yeah. It's like Inspector Gadget. All right. What is intelligence?
Neo-Chinese meals.
Yeah, dude. Succulent Neo-Chinese meals arriving from the future.
Amen.
This is Democracy Manifest. Fuck. What is intelligence? The general cognitive factor, or G, measured by IQ tests, quantifies intelligence within the human range, but it does nothing to tell us what it is. Rather, a practical understanding of intelligence as problem-solving ability has to be assumed in order to test it.
Okay, so we're ultimately presupposing what intelligence is, but if we're going to test what this thing is, again, it is kind of Heideggerian, right? He's saying we have some pre-theoretical familiarity with intelligence, right? Which I think that's right. I think that's the issue, is we know there's a thing called intelligence, and we know that there's different modes of it. But the question is, how do we pin down the essence of these modes. I mean, it's
Mhm.
you could approach this from a very Heideggerian
The question
phenomenological
concerning
perspective.
intelligence.
Right, exactly. And so he's saying we have a pre-theoretical understanding of intelligence. We're not exactly sure what it is or how to perfectly define it, but if we're going to attempt to measure it, we have to basically presuppose some working definition of it. And that would be something along the lines of the ability to solve problems. And we're going to be able to generate tests that can measure a being's ability to solve problems.
Yeah. I feel like that just already is like a profanation.
Too loaded.
Yeah, like it's already like, yeah, there's this thing and it's out there and we're only going to quantify it as this one thing because this one thing is useful. It's already making a large leap. And maybe that's where the problem lies ultimately, like where people do this fetishization of intelligence and think it's a thing that can be measured and can be quantified.
What about the fact that high Q motherfuckers often seem to lack the ability to navigate
Social
like they don't
situations?
we would say they don't have street smarts
Yep.
a lot of the time. And so the question is, isn't that what would count as street smarts? I don't know if it's the ability to solve problems or it's more of a familiarity with certain dynamics.
Mm-hmm. The ability
But
to get along with others and intuit.
read emotions,
Yeah.
intuition.
Yeah.
And again, by intuition, we're going to keep using this term. And all it means for us is a kind of immediate know how. Now, that doesn't mean because intuition, this term gets brought in to like spiritual, metaphysical baggage. And we're talking about something like you just immediately know how to navigate the situation. Now, I'm not saying that know how is just spontaneously innate in you. You've developed it since you were a kid. But once you're an adult, you have this type of relative immediate ability, this learned immediacy.
Yep.
That enables you to be able to know how to coast in situations with other people and be attuned to their emotions and the differences in perspective and how things register with them. And that seems to not be something that IQ tests measure.
Yeah, not at all. And I think
or am I wrong about that?
I think that type of intelligence or knowledge or whatever is very much tied to the body because it is embodied knowledge and it is stuff that you can develop over time and you take it for granted. And it is in a world where we aren't concerned with the body at all, where we are only concerned with like cognitive effectiveness at like accomplishing tasks, like that does bracket out the body. And so they're just like, well, yeah, I don't care about this intuition. All I care about is cognitive efficacy or what. And I don't know. It's just, to me, it's very silly. It's like, yeah, but we're in bodies. Like we're riding our bodies around all the time anyway.
And we're worldly beings.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a strict Heideggerian to accept that. I mean,
No.
I'm sorry, you exist in a world. And before you start theorizing, you're existing in a world.
Yeah.
And so the ability to engage in abstract reasoning or, hypothetical problem solving emerges out of your being in the world.
Yep.
And so, and it seems as though certain people who have the ability to do this high level abstractive thinking lose the ability to skillfully cope with the world they exist in. And not all of them, but there seems to be enough where
seems to be some correlation, some positive correlation.
we know, I mean, and maybe people would say it's a stereotype, but brainiacs
Yeah.
seem to not be the most socially navigational beings. Like,
Well, and there's the bias in the other direction too. People think of the jock like, oh, he's just a
you're
dumb
right.
jock.
You're right.
But he's
Yeah.
so cool. He's so charismatic, and everybody loves him. And he's a social butterfly, but he's a dumb jock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, there are these correlations. That it's not always, it's not a necessary thing, but it does seem to be the case that if you spend an awful lot of time hyper specializing in one direction or the other, these other things will atrophy.
You just would think that by definition, general intelligence would have to include intelligence towards emotions, social dynamics.
I mean, what makes it general? If it is this specialized
subtext.
thing, yeah, there is no general in this problem solving ability. Because I mean, there are things that, I mean, you could call it a problem if, like, you could jump through hoops and go really far out of your way to call it a problem, to call like the social field a problem. Sure, but I don't think that's how a lot of people
I just feel like you're rewriting it in your own image.
Yeah.
And you're missing something.
Yeah. The big other.
Yeah, there we go. So, okay, look, second paragraph. Land says the idea of intelligence more abstractly applies far beyond IQ testing. So now he's going to say the idea of intelligence far abstractly applies beyond IQ testing. So there's more to intelligence than what the IQ test tests. Okay. Okay, let me just read it and then we'll go to work on it. The idea of intelligence more abstractly applies far beyond IQ testing to a wide variety of natural, technical, and institutional systems, from biology through ecological and economic arrangements to robotics. In each case, intelligence solves problems by guiding behavior to produce local entropy. It is indicated by the avoidance of probable outcomes, which is equivalent to the construction of information.
I feel like, so by guiding behavior to produce local entropy, it is indicated by the blah, 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 which is equivalent to the construction of information. So
an entropy means the production of intelligence, basically.
Yeah. Entropy has to do with entropy, where entropy is this like movement toward just disorder, dissipation, the heat death of the universe. Like entropy is dumb randomness. Extropy is the opposite of dumb randomness. So, and I don't know, sometimes there's negentropy, which is similar to extropy, but it's different. I think negentropy has more to do with the arrow of time. But again, I already feel like there's leaps being made that I'm not comfortable making. I'm not comfortable saying that order and chaos
in nature.
Yeah, I just feel like,
yeah, he's saying that there's intelligence in nature producing stable patterns, in a sense, is what I'm getting from it.
Yeah.
And that these emerge through certain intensive thresholds being crossed.
Yes.
This is Deleuze-Guattari mixed with cybernetics, and even if he has issues with D&G in certain ways now, I think this is still their influence on him. Even he wrote this in 2013.
Yeah.
I still think it's Deleuze-Guattarian, but I mean, let's read it again, right? So he says the idea of intelligence more abstractly applies far beyond IQ testing. So IQ testing only measures this thing, at least right now, that humans do. It's a certain type of intelligence or a certain type of problem solving ability. And it's obviously, in our case, connected to knowledge, to epistemological criteria, to problem solving, to logic. It is something cognitive, right? Okay, so you would say, well, somehow it's connected to mind. He doesn't say that here, but that's what it's getting at, is that
Yeah.
intelligence is something minds do. And Land's saying no, it's far more reaching out into the universe than just localized in human minds. So so the idea of intelligence applies far beyond IQ testing to a wide variety of natural, technical, and institutional systems, from biology through ecological and economic arrangements to robotics. So he's saying, for example, he would say capitalism is more intelligent than communism,
Yeah.
right? He would think communism's dumb or stupid or inept, intelligently speaking, and capitalism is an intelligence producing machine. And so capitalism is intelligent for land. Now, he would also say that certain biological formations are intelligent. And this is where the Darwinism is at play, where
Mm-hmm.
species that adapt and survive are more intelligent as species than are species that die out. And so he's writing intelligence into the universe itself. And look, to go back, I would say like this is him doing cybernetics mixed with his libidinal materialism.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't use the term, but he's saying that intelligence is something matter itself does. It's not limited to just human minds.
Yes.
But do we like that definition of intelligence? Um, and here's the thing, he would hate this, and this is the last thing he'd want. Could somebody make the case this is anthropomorphizing nature?
Yeah. It's it's just weird. I don't know.
Use the word intelligence in this way.
Yeah. I think so. I think it demonstrates a need to identify somehow with the world around you in this strangely positivistic way where you're like, yeah, well, we have this thing, but this thing is out there in nature too. And so it's good when we do it. But also nature does it. It is a weird anthropocentric view of matter in motion,
Which he would totally deny.
yeah. And
To be fair about how he would view it.
And I think it is. I think it's doing a lot of weird stuff, and I think relying on like entropy and extropy to come up with this ontology of like panpsychism, essentially. I don't know. There's just a lot of leaps happening.
But he would also reject its panpsychism. It's this weird thing where somehow,
yeah, he would.
I mean, look, a lot of times he'll talk about convergent waves versus divergent waves. And what he's trying to talk about is the universe has this ability to produce things. And you and I aren't going to deny that. The universe makes new things. It takes a long time to do it. And part of what capitalism does is it taps into this process of creative destruction, but in a highly accelerated way. Like
Yes.
it makes and produces and destroys things much faster than the universe, but it's ultimately the same process. And this is again Deleuze and Guattari at play in Land's theory. But he is talking about how matter itself has the ability to solve problems,
Mm-hmm.
which is to say, so hypothetically, if a factory moves into an area and it starts to affect the local moth population, and the pollution somehow changes or is affecting the color of the leaves on the trees, and the moths learn, like their color becomes more the color of the new color of the leaves. I'm just using some kind of example of like an evolutionary
Yeah.
thing where, oh well, because the moths change colors, they're now better suited to this new environment and therefore they survive. And if you want, I mean, he would call that intelligence. And so part of it is just he's using this term in a way that's odd for most of us because like evolution. I mean, to say it's intelligent is a weird thing because he doesn't think that there's ultimately some creator god or that or it's panpsychism. I don't know because he also talks about the god of nature, Genon. So this is where I'm not sure
Yeah, I don't know.
what
And
he thinks on. Yeah,
that's why I get to the point where I'm like, okay, then throw out intelligence. Like if you're going to do this and you're going to start assigning intelligence to just mere matter in motion, like I do accept that we are matter in motion, but I think that something beautiful has emerged from that matter that has been set in motion. And like now we are now riding that vehicle. We are now riding the human body, and we have this interiority and this subjectivity. So I think it's an addition. I think it's an augmentation to just this type of intelligence. So if you want to talk about libidinal materialism, and if you want to do this, I don't know, this weird thing, it's like, okay, then give me a better word.
well, but at the same time, animals display intelligence clearly,
Yeah.
right? And so you would think that intelligence is something linked to consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be self consciousness, it doesn't have to be human consciousness, but you would think it's linked to consciousness on some level. But the process of like the
Land doesn't think so.
no, I mean, I think he thinks matter itself
Mm-hmm.
has this built-in ability to produce convergent waves, which is again this convergent wave, divergent wave thing. His example of a convergent wave is in Terminator 2.
Mm-hmm.
Once the T-1000 has been blown apart, frozen, and then shattered, it pulls itself back together. And in reality, the production of any new species or even any new type of rock or whatever, the universe pulls something new into being through other already existing elements. And so that's like this convergent wave, but also it takes them apart in divergent waves. So this is about the whole thing of creation and destruction, something being pulled together and brought into existence, and something being taken apart and forced into non-existence. And somehow the universe, so that's the thing, right? Whether we call it panpsychism or whether, fine, I understand that there's terminological issues, but we're talking about the ability of nature itself to produce new things.
Mm-hmm.
And we both we agree here, there's no challenge that nature does that. The weird thing is to say, or to call that, is that intelligence? I think it's a terminological issue we're having.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like combinatorics, that thing, yeah, again, ultimately at the end of the day, everything is just made up of little tiny little bits of matter, of atoms, of
but there are emergent thresholds.
yeah. And it's just, I don't know, it's so weird. And but taking this process that we have that I do think is tied to mind and is tied to consciousness, and projecting that onto matter in motion and these like the combinatorics of the cosmos, I think that's a mistake to do. Like yes, the world does exist. The world like I am a realist in some sense. Although I don't know, I'm sure I could get myself on some non-realism if I thought about it hard enough. But there are these processes that occur out in the cosmos, and I do not identify with them. Like I do think there is a split, and I do think it's located with consciousness or sentience or mind or whatever. So I think it is absurd. I think it's wrong to say there's this process out in the universe, and it's the same process that's going on in the core of consciousness, and that process is intelligence. I think that's mistaken.
I mean, another way to say what he's doing here is ultimately, is he not just bringing in the term intelligence to systems theory,
Mm-hmm.
that systems that thrive are intelligent and systems that do not are stupid or not as intelligent as other systems.
Yeah, I do think it's extremely Lumanian. And I don't know if Nick has ever read Lumen.
I've never seen him mention them directly.
Yeah, but there is a lot going on in Lumen that I see reflected in Land, where it is, just systems, just discrete systems, combinatorics. Everything is matter in motion. There is no subject. Ultimately, I think that's it. Like, the position is that there is no subject. Mind is not real. Mind is an illusion that emerges out of a certain level of complexity in these things. And I think mind is real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. He goes on. In each case, intelligence solves problems by guiding behavior to produce local extropy. It is indicated by the avoidance of probable outcomes. So which is to say intelligence is indicated by the avoidance of probable outcomes, which is equivalent to the construction of information. So, but again, information theory, right? And
Mm-hmm.
cybernetics, it talks about information. And so a thermostat processes information from this perspective. Which this is just a weird way, because we think, colloquially speaking, human beings process information, but in this technical way, we have to understand how a thermostat takes in the information of a rise in temperature. It has a negative feedback mechanism built into it. So if you've got the thermostat set on 72, right as it's about to reach 73, the thermostat kicks on and ensures that 72 degrees is maintained. It's the homeostatic point in this cybernetic loop. So information is being used in that sense of registered data, so to speak.
Yeah, dude. And so I've been reading a lot of Claude Shannon and information theory recently, because I'm not satisfied to call what we colloquially refer to as information. I'm not satisfied to call that the same thing that we call whatever's happening in the thermostat. It is different. And it's, I don't know, it's just like, oh, isn't that so convenient for you? Like, this does feel like a just so thing, where it's like, we take this kind of unknown and unknowable evolution of the cosmos and we project this kind of human framework onto it, where we're talking about intelligence and we're talking about information and we're talking about motivation implicitly, although motivation isn't mentioned here. Like, I think homeostasis, or the desire for some type of equilibrium, or the desire to avoid the probable outcome, like these things would be taken all as motivation for this projected intelligence on the universe. And it's just so strange to me. And it, like, a lot of people just take this for granted. And a lot of people are like, yeah, that's what it is. Of course, that's what it is. And I feel like it's very strange. It's very alien to anthropomorphize the universe and nature in this way.
See, and isn't it? I mean, look, because can't we talk about all this in terms of, well, we're talking about regularity in systems. I don't think that anthropomorphizes anything.
No.
Stability in systems. I think when you bring in intelligence and you bring in information,
Yep.
whether you like it or not, you're sneaking in some human component. And
Yes.
I think for Land, he purposely wouldn't want that to be the case. And yet I think that's the problem with this language, is that you can try to technically quilt it. You can try to anchor it in some sort of non-human signifier, like matter, for example. But what you're going to do is, as you have these conversations and you use these terms to describe these natural processes, these human connotations are going to be sliding around in the background of the meaning.
Yeah.
And
it's going to muddy the waters.
That's it. It's like,
here's the thing though, Nick, and I think some of the systems theory guys would be okay with it because they do reject subjectivity. They do hold the position that no, this is just like emergent. This is not real. Like subjectivity isn't real. They do reject subjectivity. So I do think, at least Nick and like Lumen, again, they're consistent because they do this and they kind of apply this language to systems and nature. But I think they're consistent in their rejection of subjectivity, or
we're the system that just takes itself too seriously.
Yeah. Well, we're the system for whom being a system is a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Or the system that cannot functionally be reducible to our systematicity.
Yeah, dude.
You know, so
but to them, to these guys, that's not an issue.
Because
so it's
split subjectivity isn't an issue.
That's it. Like they have this positivistic worldview where everything can be kind of post hoc rationalized and justified in this way. And we're over here on the side of the split, and we're over here on the side of dialectics, which is why I giggled when I read the diagonal method and then described it as synthetic dialectics.
Synthetic dialectics.
I think, Nick, you're doing dialectics, man. And I think I
looked at that piece a little bit, and with this whole thing of like, you're crossing these binaries, and I'm like, man, I didn't get a good chance to get in. And you're right. It's very theoretical. And so I'm going to look at it when I have more time.
I can't wait to read it with you.
It's going to be fun. But, okay, hold on. But I made a note. Like one of the only notes I prepared for this was just, for anybody listening, we already talked about it a little bit, but I think clarification helps here. So, this whole thing with extropy versus entropy. So I found a definition of extropy. It says, in a general sense, extropy refers to the level of a system's organization, intelligence, vitality, and capacity for improvement. Mm-hmm. So, entropy is a concept in thermodynamics that describes the tendency of systems to move towards disorder and randomness over time. That would be the divergent wave. Mm-hmm. Extropy represents the opposite, the drive towards order, complexity, advancement, particularly in the context of living or organizational systems. That's the convergent wave. Now, we're saying that there was a point like early land, 90s land said organization is repression. Mm-hmm. So this whole thing of being able to defend organization, you could say this is mature land.
This is NRX land.
Yeah, yeah. And so he came to realize, like, okay, there's got to be some order to things. It can't
With him, I don't disagree on that point. I do agree. We do need order and we do need boundaries.
Young anarchist,
yes,
inspired, like libertarian anarchist, Deleuze-Guattarian land was just, full territorialization, pedal to the metal.
Go, baby, go.
And I mean, it certainly appeals to a wild young spirit. Mm-hmm. But, when you start growing up a bit, you're like, okay, hold on. Yeah, dude. So the other thing I want to touch on here real quick, this is interesting. So I'm not sure I'm even saying this correctly. Extropianism. Mm-hmm. Extropianism is a philosophy that embraces the idea of increasing extropy, according to Wikipedia.
Yep.
It promotes the use of science and technology to improve the human condition.
Yep.
Land would reject that.
Yep.
and overcome limitations, including aging and death. So this is more Kurzweilian
Yes.
to me. Extropians believe that advances in areas like computing, biotechnology, and nanotechnology can lead to significant improvements in human life and capabilities. In summary, extropic describes something that embodies or contributes to the increase in extropy, which is essentially the drive towards greater order, intelligence, vitality, and improvement in a system. So I was operating on the basis of that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's kind of helpful. Just think, I mean,
What's order and disorder?
it's order, and exactly, that's what I was going to say.
So I started reading Ben Goertzel's Chaotic Logic.
Okay.
And he's talking about chaos theory, and I think there's a lot going on there where there's like this colloquial version of chaos. And I think he used the Jurassic Park Jeff Goldblum character as like
Oh, really?
as the profanation of chaos.
Malcolm?
Yeah. But chaos and disorder are not the same thing. Chaos and complexity are not the same thing, but it's a very complex topic. But yeah, to say entropy versus extropy is order versus disorder, I think that is a very safe way to say it. Also, side note, I'm writing a story based on the notion that when you increase extropy, because matter and energy, like the conservation of matter and energy, like something is always either energy or always either matter, and you can't destroy it. It always becomes one or the other. So when you do increase extropy, where does the energy go? Like you're doing something to matter, you're changing matter. And I specifically had this image of hard drives. Like hard drives are extropy. Hard drives are ordered disorder. Like you take a bare hard drive, and it's the ones we use today, the solid state drives. It's like little magnetic ups and downs, like basically ones and zeros, and it's all in disorder. And when you save data to that hard drive, you're decreasing entropy. So you're increasing extropy in the universe. So that all that energy has to go somewhere because you're doing this conversion. So the story I'm writing is eventually we create an entropy bomb because we have created so much data, and all this data is in code. And so information for me is the symbolic content of meaning, or the symbolic manipulation of meaning. Meaning is this kind of general field that we tap into by way of consciousness, and information is the symbolic aspect of that, and data is the physical aspect of it. When you write something on a piece of paper, you have created data. When you save something in a hard drive, that's a physical substrate, you've created data. So information is the symbolic aspect of meaning. Data is the physical aspect of meaning. So here in the future, we've generated so much data, so much of this physical, embodied, meaning, and we've created so much entropy. Where does all that, or so much extropy, where does all the energy go? I mean, eventually, now I think there's problems with it, but I'm also not a physicist. It's a fucking short story, motherfuckers. I get to have fun with it. But totally. Yeah, I think this fascination with entropy and extropy, I don't think it's the end all be all. I don't think local extropy is that's not intelligence, dude. Intelligence is the ability, to solve problems, to play games, but also to have a meaningful connection with an other, and also to ride a skateboard and to play basketball and to know I prefer black and milds to backwoods. Like that's also intelligence. Like all these, it's not just local extropy. That's Mikey
intelligence.
Yeah. But to totalize it and instrumentalize intelligence as nothing other than order, essentially out of disorder, I think it's doing such a huge fetishization, and I think it's a just so after the fact rationalization, and I think it's missing the point. And I think Nick Land is consistent, and he has theoretically gone down all these roads and taken them to his conclusions. But I think a lot of the people who are influenced by him don't, and they haven't sat and thought about it, and they haven't tarried with the implications of what does it mean to totalize intelligence in this way. Well, it means you are no different from my coffee cup, essentially. Like, that's like a necessary argument being made that's never explicitly stated, but it's like you can only draw it out when you really read it and really sit with it and tarry with it. And I think it's important to do so.
Okay. Wonder if I can find this quote. Anti-Oedipus. Okay.
Let me grab it.
Which we know this is the text of theirs that had the most influence on Nick. So it might take me a second to find it.
I should just pull up the PDF instead of.
Well, let's try this. This is on page 4. For the real truth of the matter, the glaring, sober truth that resides in delirium is that there is no such thing as relatively independent spheres or circuits. Production is immediately consumption and a recording process without any sort of mediation, and the recording process and consumption directly determine production, though they do so within the production process itself. Hence, everything is production, production of productions, of actions, and of passions, productions of recording processes, of distributions, and of coordinates that serve as points of reference, productions of consumptions, of sensual pleasures, of anxieties, and of pain. Everything is production, since the recording processes are immediately consumed, immediately consummated, and these consumptions directly reproduced. This is the first meaning of process as we use the term, incorporating recording and consumption within the process itself, thus making them the productions of one and the same process. Now, I understand for somebody who doesn't know D&G, that was just basically impenetrable. But their point is this: they're trying to describe the production of all things, whether it's forms of recording, of memorization, anything that exists is produced for them, and it's produced with the same, through the same process. And so whether it's human beings, whether it's societies, whether it's galaxies, whether it's mountain ranges, all things are produced through the same unconscious syntheses. And by unconscious, we're not talking about human unconscious. We're talking about the virtual transcendental structures. Again, I feel like I'm being too jargon filled here, but okay. The point is they're trying to say that there is a abstract virtual process that structures all of the becomings of nature, and we're really just one among all the others. And so that's where you see this Landian dimension of systems being intelligent, right? Because the point is just that nature itself is producing all these things. And so the intelligence is really just in for land, the virtual structures that do these are cyber positive feedback loops. And so the intelligence is really in them, but you can see how all of this gets traced back to Deleuze and Guattari. And somewhere in here, I don't know where the exact quote I was looking for is. Oh, wait, hold on. This is the second meaning of process as we use the term. Man and nature are not like two opposite terms confronting each other, not even in the sense of bipolar opposites within a relationship of causation, ideation, or expression, cause and effect, subject and object, etc. Rather, they, man and nature, are one and the same essential reality, the producer product. So it's just a way of saying there is no real divide between the human and nature. The human likes to divide itself. It likes to represent itself as something above and beyond the process. But in reality, it is just one more product of the process.
I feel like that position is downstream of capital. Capital is this thing that does reduce everything into small bits that can be combined in different ways to make different end products. But like capital is this thing that flattens everything to just production. And it's like, yeah. And I feel like if you internalize the logic of capital, then it's a perfectly fine position to have because it logically bears out. And I think Nick has internalized that logic of capital where things are just...
Yeah, because the capital is just the great accelerator of this process they're describing.
Yes. But we very much have not. We very much are defenders of the human.
Which is to say the non-reducibility of the human to this cybernetic process.
Yeah.
That we are the beings cut away from this process, not absolutely cut away from it. I know that this process can explain how my body was created. Yes, sure. And so we always are enmeshed or entangled in this process. We're not ontologically vacuum sealed away from it, right? Talk like Graham Harmon.
Yeah.
But there's an emergent dimension that our bodies are capable of when combined with language, and that emergent condition is called subjectivity.
Yep.
And once it exists, it's not reducible to this process. I'm not saying it outlives the body. I'm not saying that once the body dies, this subjectivity goes somewhere else. But I am saying that an emergent phenomena is produced through the combination of the body and language, and it's not reducible to either once it exists. And that would be subjectivity.
That's what's so weird. Like, I feel like this like hard materialism or whatever it is kind of doing the same thing that like hyper spirituality does, whereas hyper spirituality has this need, not even hyper spirituality, I guess maybe in general, has this need for an ultimate account. Everything needs to have its place, a place for all things and all things in their place. God provides that with cosmology and cosmogony and eschatology and all this stuff, but breaking away from that and then going to this type of like hard materialism where people aren't real and people don't matter. I feel like that's the same thing. You're doing this ultimate cosmic accounting. It's, well, yeah, we're all just pieces of matter floating around.
Yeah, but what if our place is the non-place? Where we belong is in non-belonging.
That's the thing, people. We discovered it. We are here. That's why I always go back to Horton Hears a Who, man. We are here. We are here. We are here. Like, I think that's the position we need to take up. Like, stop looking for the universal ledger to demonstrate proof to you that you are here. Look up from your techne. Look up from your instrumental rationality. The whole world is right there at your fingertips. You don't have to keep denying it.
Yeah. You want to do the third paragraph?
Let's do the general science of extropy production or entropy dissipation is cybernetics. It follows, therefore, that intelligence always has a cybernetic infrastructure consisting of adaptive feedback circuits that adjust motor control in response to signals extracted from the environment. Intelligence elaborates upon machinery that is intrinsically realist because it reports the actual outcome of behavior rather than its intended outcome in order to correct performance.
So here he's connecting this whole process to cybernetics, which we knew he would connect intelligence to cybernetics. Yeah, it's just there's, where there's intelligence, there's a cybernetic infrastructure. What I will say is, yeah, our issue is going to be how this leaves what we conceptualizes subjectivity out of the equation. But this is also very theoretically consistent.
Yes.
If you know, so I want to give him his credit. Like, this is really a great articulation of his position, right? He's theoretically firing on all cylinders here.
Mm-hmm.
But it is this materialist reduction
Yep.
of all things to this cybernetic, which for him would be cyber positive process of convergent waves, of extropy, of order being brought in. And I mean, look, the losing Qatari had their terms for this, like sedimentation, stratification. These are the terms they deployed in Anti-Oedipus. But it's just that, whereas, again, I already said it, but earlier he was all about deterritorialization, all about decoding. Some part of him has come to appreciate how matter can actually bring about structure and form and stability. And I think before he primarily located those things in the human social order, especially anchored in the state.
Yeah.
So the state is what imposes order, therefore order is bad. But he's come to see how no, the matter is an ordering principle itself, and its infrastructure is our cybernetic feedback loops.
Nicholas Luhmann got a lot of shit for using the term autopoiesis.
Heidegger was all about poiesis, though, and like how nature itself produces things, right?
Yep.
And when, I mean, there is an auto production to nature. So I'm sorry, I would want to defend Luhmann on that.
I do, and I think he's right to use the term, but I also am aware of how it can sneak in other assumptions or other kind of implicit theoretical points. Like if you do it uncritically, you do run the risk of essentially anthropomorphizing nature and anthropomorphizing the cosmos itself. But no, like auto production is a thing that happens. Like, how did we get here? I don't believe that some God created us. I do think,
and that's, you know what, you're a certain type of theologian, or what they're going to say is, well, where did the auto productive process itself come from?
Yeah,
right. They'll just, but you want to go, oh yeah, okay, so you push it back
to the infinite regress.
Then there's this, there's a being that's just always existed.
Yeah, man. Do the Kalam cosmological infinite. I don't need that. I don't need the universal ledger. I don't need to see the books. I am here, and I don't deny that I am just here.
Yeah. It's interesting though. Charles Sanders Peirce, I forget exactly what essay it's in. I need to have this. I need to go find it. It's in that book up there. He talks about how the laws of nature themselves are the product of auto production. He doesn't use the term, but I think he might even call him evolution, maybe. But he talks about how the laws of nature themselves had to be brought into existence by nature. So it is, I mean, there is a sense where the regulating virtual structures of the universe themselves have a history. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is, what science does is try to give us an account of how, whether it's actual entities or whether it's abstract principles or things that are part of the universe but we can't see them, like gravity, right?
Yeah,
gravity has had to come into existence, right? So the thing is, yeah, I mean, do you allow yourself to accept what we on scientific terms can attempt to explain and go, okay, well, it doesn't explain everything, but that's what we've got evidence for? Or do you push it back and go, well, that's not good enough. Now I have to fill in the gap with something that lays an ultimate foundation for the universe. You know, it's tempting for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think doing either this like hard materialism or, you know, really enthusiastic spirituality, I think it's the same thing. It's doing the same thing. It's scratching the same itch.
Would you say both of them in roundabout way? This is the Lacanian insight. Both of them are ways to fill the lack in the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is to say, you make the universe into one entirely consistent thing through cybernetizing it, through explaining it in terms of univocal processes, like this is all there is, this is how it works. Or you take a metaphysical step back and say there's the universe itself is not perfectly consistent, but the thing outside of it that produced it is.
Yeah.
Either way, you fill in the lack in. When I say the other here, we could just say the universe or reality.
Yeah.
That for us as humans, we know that we can't process all of it, and we're not going to understand all of it. And so, do you stand in that lack, or do you, out of fear and anxiety, find a way to fill it in?
Yeah, it's a retreat. It's a fleeing from this. I mean, we just can't. We can't know. It cannot be signified. Much like we are this kind of remainder. Subjectivity is this remainder, this thing that can't be totalized. The universe also can't be totalized. The universe itself is the remainder. Quit trying to.
You know what Nick is doing here? To me, I think what he's doing, and again, I have a lot of respect for it.
Mm.
But I think it's his scientific cybernetized version of doing a kind of pre-Socratic metaphysics, where it's like, this is the principle that explains all that is.
Yeah.
And he's calling that principle intelligence here.
Yeah.
So it might as well be Heraclitus's fire, or Anaximander's Toapi Rome, or
And look, I think it's fine to do that, and I like metaphysics is awesome, and I love to think about things and wonder at the mysteries, but I also don't think we should be predicating essentially like injunctions or mandates. Like the injunction here is intelligence is good, thus we should try to free intelligence from, we should try to set order free from the disorder, essentially.
It's like the human all too human is clogging up
the
acceleration of intelligence.
Yeah, and I don't think we should take up that view based on some metaphysical framework that I don't know. Like it's like, no, slow down, dude. Pump the brakes. Like, because you have this metaphysical view, which again, it's fine. I have my own metaphysical view, but I'm not out here saying let's accelerate humans out of existence. Like I'm saying, whoa, hold on. There is this thing that we all are. We all are subjects, and we shouldn't be denying our subjectivity just because it doesn't match up, logically consistently with our metaphysical view of what is the universe, what is the prime mover. That's where the problem lies. And again, I think Nick is consistent, and I do respect the shit out of all the theory he does and all the work he's done to come up with his position. But it's the people who just onboard that position without really understanding what's going on. I think that's a problem. There's all the guys in Silicon Valley right now working on this tech that is already radically changing the world we live in. It seems like day by day there's a new advancement. There's a new something else happening. All these guys have this anti-human position without ever having interrogated it. And they think they're like the extropians, they think they're doing the most to maximize human flourishing. And it's like, well, yeah, but your whole framework is built on an anti-human position. So you're going to reach a point where things become problematic.
Well, I mean, did you see the whole thing about Google via 3? Is that what it's called?
Is it the new videos that
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
people made a street interview video and it like,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, we're there, dude. We live in the future
And the
now.
question is, okay, so the question is when you have this level of simulation, because I mean, goddamn, did Baudrillard see this shit coming?
Yep.
But part of me, like I wish he was here to see all this. Because I feel like that if anybody deserves to be able to say, I told you so,
Oh yeah.
it would be that guy. But yeah, you just asked the question, why do we need this
Yep.
tech? Like, what exactly? Why do we need it?
Capital. They need it for efficiency, dude. They need it. They need it. Money, 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 money.
So humans don't need it.
No. Commodity. Capital needs it. Commodity, commodity, commodity. That's. I doubt we're gonna have time to get into that at all. But like, going back to Todd and Ryan's episode on AI, and going back to like the conversation we've been having, the commodity is evil, dude. And this shows you why. We are not compatible. Like if the universe has to be totalized, it really is one or the other. It really is the human or capital.
All of this, though, appeals to us at the phantasmatic level. Like that's how it gets us.
Mm-hmm.
Is we want to see what kind of phantasmatic scenarios we can generate with this type of new tech, and it's going to find its way into pornography. It's going to blah 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 blah.
Oh yeah.
And that's the commodity always knows how to get us, and it's
Yep.
appealing to our those core phantasmatic impulses in us.
Yep.
And this will take hold.
Oh,
Just
for sure.
like all the other forms of new social media or tech take hold, and it's because it appeals to us at this phantasmatic level, and that's where we allow it to get its hooks in us.
Well, and I'm sure people will use it to do cool stuff. I'm sure people do. Like technology in framing is bad, but people have managed to do amazing, wonderful things with technology throughout human history. And I'm sure people will continue to do amazing things until people no longer exist. But it's stuff like this that, I mean, we already spend so much time on social media rather than living life and doing anything at all. Mm-hmm. We sit back and we watch influencers and creators. And so we're already giving up so much of our time to this commoditized form of entertainment that is influencers and content creators. But at least it's people doing it. At least the influencers and the content creators are people. Here in a couple of years, it won't even be people. It will just be, you have your device, you turn it on, and it's this like customized exactly to your phantasmatic structure content all day long, every day. Wall-E, we're already Wall-E people. Already. Mm-hmm. And it's just going to keep getting harder and harder. And the thing is, like, all this stuff is dependent. It's still currently dependent on slavery all around the world. It's still dependent on the global south, and it's still dependent on
wage labor.
Yeah. And when automation gets good enough where we don't need human slaves anymore, it'll be cheaper for the capitalists to just replace the human workers with robots. And it's just gonna get worse. Like, I don't want to be alarmist. I do think technology is cool, and allows us to do cool stuff, but we're not able to exercise our agency. And just more and more and more, the empty spaces in the world that used to be spaces that we could discover and freely move into, they're getting filled up with the commodity. The commodity is colonizing the surface of the planet. And once we run out of space, there's nowhere else to go. We can't go to Mars. We can't go to the moon. Not yet, anyway.
I wonder if I could find this. Now I could imagine Nick saying this isn't fair, but If we go back to Thirst for Annihilation.
Mm.
So when it comes to defining, he says, uh, there is one simple criterion of taste in philosophy, that one avoid the vulgarity of anthropomorphism. It is by failing here. That's why he would have such an issue with us saying that he's doing anthropomorphism. But it is by failing here that one comes to side with cages. The specifics follow straightforwardly. So he's saying, look, if you're going to be a libidinal materialist that fundamentally rejects anthropomorphism, these are the four key aspects of it. And so one of them is ruthless fatalism, no space for decisions, responsibilities, actions, intentions. Any appeal to notions of human freedom discredits a philosopher beyond amelioration. Amelioration. Now, see, but that's where when he's young, like he's just straight up. I mean, the other ones are hence absence of all moralizing, even the crispest, most Aristotelian. The penchant for correction, let alone vengefulness, pins one in the shallows. So, fuck freedom.
Yeah.
That's a bullshit idea. Fuck ethics or morals. That's bullshit. Contempt for common evaluations. One should even take care to avoid straying accidentally into the right. Even to be an enemy is too comforting. One must be an alien, a beast. Nothing is more absurd than a philosopher seeking to be liked. I mean, it's a great turn of phrase.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, I think that one I have more sympathy towards, because I think what a philosopher does is challenge these core basic presuppositions. And I didn't read the first one, so let me just read it. Thoroughgoing dehumanization of nature. Now, see, that's the issue, right? We feel like talking about intelligence is humanizing nature, and he would still insist that it's not, and that we're just caught up on semantics. But nonetheless, he says, a thoroughgoing dehumanization of nature involving the uttermost impersonalism in the explanation of natural forces, vigorously atheological cosmology, no residue of prayer, an instinctive fastidiousness in respect to all the traces of human personality, and the treatment of such as the excrement of matter as its most ignoble part, its gutter. So, see, people don't understand like the deep anti-humanism. Like, he'll say he doesn't like humanism now, but this is where he really is talking about it, right? So, but no, I think that that's all relevant to, like, I can't help but I hear echoes of that in this essay we're reading.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know if he'd want to be held to that, but I also think it's there. So at least traces of it are there.
That's the thing. And I don't bring it up to and I don't think you're bringing it up to do a gotcha to Nick,
no,
but it is to say, like, this is here. The Extropians, the Kurzweilians, the Bostromites, even, like, these people all share this utilitarian point of view, that it's just about extropianism and let's increase utility and let's try to do the most ethical good for the most amount of people. But like, Nick is the only one who broke this shit down to this way, and it is this anti-human
That's why
position.
we like him the most. It's like he's the most honest about this.
Yes. And
they try to have their cake and eat it too, which
that's
is
it.
They want dehumanizing technology that enhances the human.
That's it.
And he's the only one going, no, I just side with the dehumanizing technology. And that's where you and I go, thank you.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
And fair enough.
If that's your thing.
Fair enough. But like, the problem is that there are all these people who have access to the levers of power now by way of being where they are in production. Like they're creating this new technology, they're leading the direction of this new technology, and they hold this anti-human view, and they either don't know it or won't admit to it,
or ideologically exploit humanism
yes,
as a mask.
right. And Nick's like, no, dude, this is my position. And yeah. But
So, okay. Do you want to say anything more about this paragraph before we go on to the next one?
no. Okay. Actually, yeah, the next one, because he's still doing production in this next one.
Okay. Even rudimentary homeostatic feedback circuits have evolved. Now, see, I like that. Again, that's the Persian thing, talking about how, the virtual structures that bring in actual things are themselves produced and have a history. Okay. Even rudimentary homeostatic feedback circuits have evolved. In other words, cybernetic machinery that seems merely to achieve the preservation of disequilibrium attests to a more general and complex cybernetic framework that has successfully enhanced disequilibrium. Enhanced disequilibrium would be cyber positivity, would it not?
Yeah.
Like it increased the disequilibrium.
Yeah.
The basic cybernetic model, therefore, is not preservative, but productive. So I think, again, the preservative one would be negative feedback. The productive one would be positive feedback for him. Yeah, look what he says. Organizations of conservative negative feedback have themselves been produced as solutions to local thermodynamic problems by intrinsically intelligent processes of sustained entropy increase, positive feedback assemblage, or escalation. So this is, he's using some different language, but this is stuff he's done for a long time, going all the way back to the early stuff. Is this distinction between negative feedback and positive feedback? In nature, where nothing is simply given, so that everything must be built, the existence of self-sustaining improbability is the index of a deeper runaway departure from probability. It is this cybernetic intensification that is intelligence abstractly conceived. So there's a definition of intelligence.
Yeah. I think it is interesting that this definition of intelligence being the departure from probability, if we're going to take that, which is order from disorder, like the most probable outcome is just more disorder. Like it's just the ball bouncing down the stairs. It's just going to boom, 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 and probability. But if you built a track, like a little Hot Wheel track or whatever, and put it on, there would be more order, and it would be a departure from probability. The way our current large models work, they're all based on probability, and they normalize probability, and they, going back to the is-ought thing, facts values, like our AIs are currently normative and probabilistic. So they're not intelligence. Like the current artificial intelligence that we have working with, going with this definition of intelligence, are the opposite of intelligence, because they're just seeking the most probable outcome. Like that is what they do. They find what is most probable, whereas intelligence is a departure from what is most probable. So I mean that right there, and it is true. Like the current algorithms we have are idiots, and they're idiotic, and the problem lies, eventually they won't be as idiotic as they currently are. I just think it's interesting that, like, defining intelligence as the departure from probability based solely in this extropian point of view where you want to increase local extropy. Well, then all of our artificial intelligence right now is artificial unintelligence.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I mean, that's a great point. The two things that this brings to mind. One, I would just say, because again, look, when we do, I guess we should say, when we do these kinds of videos, we're only going to do exegeses of people we respect. We're not going to waste our time. So people need to know, like, even if we disagree with Nick, it's not because we don't like, we respect him by even covering it. Like, and the same if we Alejandro drives, like we want to read Steve Alejandro's paper because we respect him, even if we don't agree on everything. Like, same with Zizek, same with Baudrillard, same with anybody. So I want to say though, where I really agree with Nick, and this is this, see, because I have this complicated relationship with Deleuze and Guattari and Land, right? Where I do agree with them on certain points that are core to their philosophies. And then I have my other fundamental disagreements with other points in their philosophies. But where Nick says, in nature, where nothing is simply given, so that everything must be built, that I agree with. I get, yeah, everything, including the virtual structures or the abstract machines, or the virtual potentials themselves have to be built. I like that way of thinking about the universe. I like that way of seeing the universe as, talk like D&G, an egg, where it is this field where not only are actual things produced, but potentials themselves have to be produced. I think that's a helpful way of doing a kind of process metaphysics. And so that I like, and I would say that I probably just metaphysically agree with. What I would say in the quote that jumps out at me that require, and I'm bringing this up because I want to talk it through with you. All right, so this definition we get here, it is, wait. Okay, so let's just reverse the way you worded it and just do the simple. Intelligence is cybernetic intensification. Okay, I think I'm being fair by just rewording it to make it simple and straightforward. Intelligence is cybernetic intensification. Okay, when we spoke to Nick, how did he define intelligence? Competency at playing games.
Yep.
Okay, so how do we identify competency at playing games with cybernetic intensification? Would he actually say, like, if you're good at playing a game, there is a cybernetic intensification in it?
Yeah, if you look at
I think
games,
he would say that, actually.
Yeah, if you look at games as just sets of rules with conditions, win-lose conditions, it's just a set of rules.
The virtual structures would be the entropy, right?
Yeah. And
Michael Jordan made things happen within the set of rules called basketball that nobody else had. And it literally was through intensifications, which is to say his ability to produce the intensity of jumping a certain way, or the intensification of how accurate his ability to control intensities when shooting the basketball. Like, it was through the it's like the increase in ordered intensification. Like, he had a better ability to control a basketball and a better ability to move around other players than anybody else did at the time, at least.
But
it was through it was this bodily intensive activity.
It was, but he also had the intelligence to not get caught up doing drugs and not get caught up playing around with women and manage his gambling so that it didn't become problematic.
he also knew how to navigate the other players' emotions.
Yeah, he was a
play
very
mind games and fuck
charismatic
with
guy.
them.
Like it wasn't just the physical processes of jumping and shooting, and it wasn't just the rules and understanding the rules. He also got in people's heads, and he also talked shit, and he also played on the crowd, and people knew, oh shit, he's coming. We're fucked. Like the reputation, like there's all this other stuff involved in being Michael Jordan that's not just what's happening on the court. That I think it's just as relevant to, or maybe even more so. Like I've known people who are freakishly talented, people in the Army, and also people in jail. Like some of the most talented people I know, and have ever known, athletically or musically or artistically, they fall through the cracks because they don't have these other types of intelligences to manage and use their like inherent ability to be successful and find a set of rules where they can play a game and actually win. But like the homeless artist and the fucking dudes in prison who are going to be in prison for the rest of their life because they fucked up. But like Michael Jordan had the talent, yes, and he played the game, yes, but he also had the other kind of intelligence, the right kind of street smarts to know this is what I want to do. This is how I want to apply myself. Not everybody has that type of intelligence.
You know, another example is how another human being can actually be a system of intelligence for another human being. And what I have in mind, of course, is, okay, if we're talking about intelligence as cybernetic intensification, then part of what we could say is there's a level of intelligence that does produce intensification, but only on the basis of how it's ordered. And that if too much disorder comes in, you lose the cybernetic intensification.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds all very abstract, but a concrete example of this is in the relationship between Mike Tyson and his original trainer, Cus D'Amato. Cus D'Amato served as this virtual structure in the sense of he knew how to bring out Mike's potentials, his intensifications, right? But he also knew how to keep him anchored and structured where those intensities didn't eat him up. And when Cus D'Amato died, that's when Mike's career started to go off the rails. And those intensities that were harnessed through Cus D'Amato's presence and guidance overran him, and radical disequilibrium took in. And you can say he got less intelligent as a boxer as he moved along. And, you know, he would even admit this now. I've seen him admit this. And so this is where there, like, of course, there's the Lacanian way to talk about Cus D'Amato as, you know, the ego ideal that centered Mike's forms of enjoyment and blah, 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 blah. But this Landian way of doing it is saying that Cus D'Amato served as a system of intelligence that provided an ordering structure that cultivated and brought out certain intensities, certain potentials in Mike. And once that ordered structure was lost, those intensities ran wild and undermined his ability to actually be the best boxer he could have been.
I mean, I wonder, that's a fucking hell of an example. I was going to say Eazy-E and DOC.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. You know, similar thing. I don't know if it's true though. I was just going to say, well, I mean, that could be the case. Like after Eazy-E, DOC kind of went off the deep end and crashed a Ferrari or some shit.
You can also say that Bone Thugs and Harmony needed Easy there.
Yep.
To bring out their best intensities, their best potentials.
Yep.
And they needed that order of him.
Andre 3000 and Big Boy. Look at Andre now.
I know
he's not. He's not with Big Boy. I don't think they broke up. I think they're just doing their thing, and they're like, yeah, we don't want to make a new record, but no one gives a shit about Andre's flute music. But Andre 3000
or they
and Big
care
Boy
a lot,
together,
but not in a good way.
Yeah, or they just want to talk shit about it. But
Yeah.
I don't care. I will fucking fight anybody. Outcast is top 3 groups of
Oh, aliens. Come on, man.
Come on, guy. But Andre 3000
Growing Old is one of my favorite hip hop songs ever.
Dude, Andre 3000 is the guy. He's part of Outkast. Like, he brought us some of the greatest fucking music of our lifetimes, but now people hate him because he's off without Big Boy. He's off playing a fucking flute.
And yeah, and you can say the expression, that cultivation of our intensities, of our potentials, does exist within a certain ordered framework, and that if you take a person out of that or an element out of that, it just cannot tap it. I mean, it's true. I mean, I'm sorry, like, certain people are their best. I mean, it's funny, like, I don't know if, I mean, I'm sure you have. You ever looked at the thing of Hunter S. Thompson's drug regiment on a daily basis?
Dude.
Yeah. Now that's insane to the rest of us. None of us could even stay alive through it. But that regularity of intensity actually brought forth his ability to be the writer we know and love. And without that, he wouldn't have been the writer that he was. So it is this weird play of, like, there, you know, to bring out, to cross thresholds, to become something new, to make a difference. That sounds cheesy, but it's Deleuze-Guattarian.
Yeah.
There's a certain order, though, that has to be there. And the kind of immature thing with just pure deterritorialization misses how order itself is productive of new intensities, crossing thresholds, etc.
Yeah.
I think the older land here is seeing that, and that's what he's doing here. So I think that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
This last paragraph, and then these 4 bullet points are the real gold of it, right? But so the last paragraph, Nick says, intelligence as we know it built itself through cybernetic intensification within terrestrial biological history. It is naturally apprehended as an escalating trend, sustained for over 3 million years.
3 billion.
For 3 billion years. Yeah. God damn. You say, like, it is. I'm sorry. When you say something like 3 billion years, it is a noumenon. Like, it's not a noumenon. I get, like, the strict Kantians would give me shit for that. But there is something beyond my ability to register. I can say words and I can have some sort of hazy, abstract understanding, but I don't process it like I do 3 days.
Yeah.
Sorry, you know?
Or even the difference between million and billion. Like,
yeah.
Like, when you go up
billion?
Those orders of magnitude, it loses contact with the phenomenal world. Like, it's just like, oh, I just know that's a lot.
See, and this is one of the things I love about Nick's work, is that how I think he points out, like, yeah, you guys can say 3 billion years. You can say that, but it's a noumenon. It is beyond. And you can say that what is this, the temperature on the surface of the sun, what, 20,000 degrees or something?
Yeah.
Or more?
Yeah, some like 24. It's probably more. Let's see if we can Google it.
Can we Google it?
Yeah.
What's Joe Rogan's guy? We need him right now. What's his name?
Jamie.
Jamie, look that up for us.
Let's see. Oh shit, it's less. It's about 10,000 Fahrenheit, which is
okay. What about the core of the sun?
The core. Hold on, wait a minute. This can't be right. 27 million Fahrenheit.
27 million.
Yeah, that's
Fahrenheit.
mind-blowing. That's mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing. And I think that's what an encounter with the noumenon is for land. It's mind-blowing. You cannot fucking wrap your head around it.
Yeah.
And I know Kantians would go, the noumenon is not 3 billion years. The noumenon is not 20 7 million. Those are things in the empirical field. Shut the fuck up. They are noumena in the sense of they are beyond our ability to actually cognitively and perceptually cognize them.
Yep.
They are words. And that's the thing, because they're describing determinate realities. That's where they'll say they're not noumena, because we put determining signifiers on them, but they're not determined in the way that my copy of The Thirst for Annihilation is determinable conceptually and experientially for me.
They are the tree in the woods with no one around. Like the tree falling in the woods with no one around. That's also noumenal in this way, because sure, it's determined and sure, it's this thing, and yeah, but also no, without a subject there to really bring it home. Just like we can say 27 million degrees Fahrenheit and we can have some idea and this and that, but it's meaningless. It is meaningless because it cannot be brought into relation with the subject. Just like the tree in the woods, no one was there to hear it, so it's not.
So in my book, there's a paragraph where I address all this, and I talk about, like, look, all of us, we know how to process different temperatures, right? So if I say, hey, Nance, it's 32 degrees here in Kansas City, that is hoodie weather. Probably need a jacket as well, right? If I say, hey, it's 52 degrees, you're going to say, oh, it's probably a little chilly, a good hoodie, but I don't need a jacket. If I say it's 72 degrees, that ain't hoodie weather. I probably, need a t-shirt, maybe a light hoodie at night if it cools off. If I say 93 degrees, to leave your fucking hoodie at home.
Mm-hmm.
It's not required. We have perceptual registration of these different temperatures. If I say it's going to be 27 million, sorry, I don't have to do it. If I say it's going to be 767 degrees, we don't have a fucking clue what that is, because our bodies can't even begin to function in that temperature. And so if we can't function at 767 degrees, 27 million, it is the complete absence of us.
Yes.
And that is the definition of the noumena.
Yeah.
Where the noumenon is at, we are not. Yep. Well, we are not at 27 million degrees.
Yeah.
So there is a way Nick is completely justified in expanding the usage of the term noumenon in this way, to refer to these magnitudes of intensity or these time scales or space, like the immensity of space is a noumenon. And so I just think he's justified in using the term noumenon in these ways.
Well, I think it strangely does a lot of work to center the subject. I think it does a lot of work for me anyway to demonstrate, like, what matters is not just these kind of determinative facts, but the determinative facts coming into contact with the subject. So it is, for me, a very anthropocentric maneuver, and I like that. I think it's a good thing, because I'm not doing anthropocentrism to be I don't know, subjectivity is where it's at. Intelligence matters to me more than combinatorics and this kind of weird universe, but like material matter in motion. Yeah, but fucking we have a subjective experience.
I guess my thing, the way I would say where I'm at with it is like, okay, if somebody right now actually said, look, the human beings are only going to exist 100 more years or 200 more years or 300 more years. If I knew that for certain, I still would be in this position to center the human based on what the human's going to go through.
Yes.
As it's on the way out.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if the human's on the way out. I mean, it's on the way out in the way that everything in the universe is on the way out. We're not going to exist in our current form forever. Okay. I can deal with that reality. But I think we talked about it last time, maybe, where it's but what level of suffering, what level of existential struggle, political struggle, economic struggle are humans going to have to go through as this noumenal future seeps its way in? That is something I'm concerned with.
Yeah.
And So yeah, I'm going to be concerned with thinking the difference between us and machines and us and algorithms as this stuff starts to fundamentally affect us at the most fundamental level of our libidinal economies, at the level of our existences, our existentiality, at the level of our emotions, and at the level of our symbolic bonds with other human beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and these things are just getting more and more. They're encroaching upon more and more of our space, of our field of potentiality. Like our virtual horizons are being brought closer and closer and closer into us as every day goes on, and there's more technological development, but there's also more of this weird anti-human position just kind of diffusely being accepted by people who call themselves effective accelerationists, and they want to do ethical good for people. And it's like, yeah, but your framework precludes people. So you can the millenarians and the long-termists and all these people, it's like you can perform belief in the human through like a speech act, but what you're actually doing is anti-human, and you are not even increasing the likelihood of our destruction. You are increasing the surety of our destruction, because this is a fundamentally anti-human point of view. This is trying to totalize the universe and saying this town ain't big enough for the both of us. And I think it is. I'm not the one out here totalizing. I'm not the one out here making these grand proclamations. I do think capital is a thing that's been set free in the world, and it will always exist in some form or another. But I think we can tame the dragon. I think we can ride the sandworm like fucking Muad'Dib. But this logic, this framework doesn't allow for that. This framework says you're nothing but matter in motion.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I love the Dune.
Yeah, dude.
Imagery there.
Dude, did you watch the David Lynch Dune?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
I know. I remember you telling me.
Yeah,
you weren't as big on the Villeneuve.
Villeneuve. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Villeneuve. I have mixed feelings about him, but David Lynch's Dune might be my favorite Lynch movie, and he fucking hated it.
No, did I tell you that that's Todd's favorite?
Yeah.
That's Todd's favorite Lynch
I think
movie, which when he got a lot of pushback, I guess, when he released that. But
like Lynch fucking hated that movie, and that's what makes it the best Lynch movie. The fact that he fucking rejected it. But
I don't have as much. Like, it's weird. Like, I saw that when I was young, and it's weird. It's not one of the movies from childhood that I really, really adored. I mean, it was always, something I knew, but I didn't get into Lynch's other stuff till I was much older, like early 20s. But I mean, for me, the Twin Peaks universe is always going to be. Fucking... I mean, to me, the Twin Peaks universe is his masterpiece. But
yeah, I think Dune is my favorite movie because Firewalk with me as a standalone movie. I don't think it's a standalone movie. I think it's part of the Twin Peaks. Yeah, and Todd might disagree with us because I think that's his second favorite one, or maybe it's Dune's second, Firewalk. But I know those are like his two favorites. Yeah.
But Firewalk is also very different tonally than. I mean, that's the thing. These three, you have the original series, you have the movie, and then you have the reboot,
the new Showtime reboot. Yeah.
And all three of them have different vibe to them while still perfectly maintaining that Twin Peaks vibe.
Yeah.
But for me though, I mean, maybe I'm being cliche. I don't care. Those early episodes of the original series.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just some of my favorite, pop culture ever.
Dude. Yeah. All right.
Especially the pilot. But okay, let's see. So let me finish this paragraph. So reread it. Intelligence as we know it built itself through cybernetic intensification within terrestrial biological history. It is naturally apprehended as an escalating trend, sustained for over 3 billion years, to the production of ever more extreme feedback sensitivity, extropit in probability, and operationally relevant information. Intelligence increase enables adaptive responses of superior complexity and generality, in growing part because the augmentation of intelligence itself becomes a general purpose adaptive response. Now, is that not another way of saying intelligence optimization is baked into intelligence as such?
Yeah, basically saying intelligence has
I'm
this.
100 drive.
Yep. Intelligence has this for the sake of which that is intelligence, more, more, which is to say, ultimately, capital is an intelligence, because capital has baked into capital this acquisitive, this optimization, more.
Yeah, so I don't think you know what? Hold on, let's see. Okay.
All right.
Thought I had it. Hold on. Okay. So this connection between capital and intelligence, right? It's something I keep trying to rethink. And the way I did it in the book is to try to take Marx's general formula of capital and show that as a homologous structure to intelligence. At least this is what I think Land is saying. So I said, insofar as capital, owing to its various mechanisms in the market and in production, is both inherently productive of intelligence and productive of new and ever increasing efficient forms of technology, the very process of capital accumulation will necessarily bring about the singularity. This is why Land's greatest maxim is capitalism is artificial intelligence. For Land, there is not merely a homology between the productive accumulation of capital and the productive accumulation of intelligence, but rather are one and the same process. Nevertheless, for the sake of conceptual clarification, I want to present my own original formula for the process of intelligence accumulation and its structural relation to that of Marx's formula of capital accumulation, MCM prime. While this formula is my own, I certainly would have never formulated it without Land's work. Honestly, Land himself ought to have been the one who formulated it. So with Marx, we have MCM prime, which is you take a certain amount of money, you invest it in commodity production, sell the commodity, and at the end, you end up with surplus money or capital, right? And so it's an augmentation in the increase of economic value, of exchange value that produces a surplus, right? Okay, so homologously, we could say I C I prime. Intelligence into coding and decoding, which is it loses the given state of the intelligence through decoding and recoding, which produces a greater amount of intelligence, surplus intelligence, I prime. And so I'm just saying, like, this both are cyber positive feedback loops for Nick.
Yep.
And the one spurs on the other. So ultimately, wherever you have MCM prime, you have ICI prime. And I think he would even go so far as to say where you have ICI prime, you have MCM prime. Now, it's because he thinks capital ultimately as a cyber positive feedback loop. Now, obviously, if we're using intelligence in the way he's been using it in this essay, it's a more broader thing that existed before money and commodities. But the virtual structure of this MCM prime, this production of a surplus out of a thing itself, it's at work in the augmentation of intelligence. So
Yeah. Well, and
basically, I was trying to say the same structure.
I think money is just an expression of that kind of surplus. Like I do think money and capital are, like, capital is different, and capital is like the description of this process, and money and capitalism are things that came up in human history due to the necessity of this process. I do think it, maybe not to naturalize it. I don't think I would go so far as to naturalize it. I think Nick would just say, no, it is the same thing. And we see it, like, it is intelligence, and we see it in the form of capitalism, but that's just an expression of this, like, inherent structure in the world around us.
Yeah.
I don't think I would say capital goes back. I wouldn't naturalize capital.
I don't want to identify capital with the cyber positive, with a positive feedback loop as such.
Right.
Capital is a specific
Yes.
cyber positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
But not every cyber positive feedback loop is capital.
Right.
At least that's what I want. I want capital to maintain a more focused identity, which is, it is this process of economic accumulation that involves money and commodities, and it's not just an excessive expansion of something via a loop.
Well, that's the thing. I think I often will refer to the machine god, or talk about, like, capital as the idiot god or the blind god. And I think I do that to try to, like, illustrate the hold and the power that capital has over us. But capital had an origin, and capital is a human contrivance, and we built this new god, and then we kind of, we set him free and unleashed him, and now he's killing us. But capital,
I thought it was an alien that fell to Earth.
Well, I mean, it could be that too. Like, I don't know when it got here, or how it got here, or where exactly it came from, but it hasn't always been here, is to say.
I'm just saying that's how Nick thinks of it, as it's almost like this creature that fell to Earth and fundamentally disrupted how humans organize their societies. And I mean, it's a helpful way to view it. Because for me, I feel somebody sent me a message, and then I just realized I forgot to respond to it. So my bad on that. It was a social media friend named Eric, and Eric said he disagrees with Land because he doesn't think capitalism is actually like this engine of radically new technology. And I need to respond. I forgot, but my response would be, I disagree with, like, I do see capital as this radical rupture in the history of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
We've had states for a long time,
mm-hmm.
right? But capital, as we know it, especially in the form of industrial capital, it has a very sharp beginning in human history, and it disrupted the way that our symbolic orders functioned in a profound way. And I know people can go, are you saying that humans didn't have technology before capital? No, but I'm saying what we didn't have is this radical increase in how technology is just constantly
the churn,
right? That was not part of human civilizations. And somebody can say, oh, well, you don't know your history good because this civilization produced this new technology and it changed. I know, guys. The point is, with capitalism, by the time you're an adult, you don't live in the same world you were born into as a kid. And you have to reckon with how capitalism has accelerated technological development in a way that no other symbolic order was ever able to even come close to doing. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm a Landian in so far as I recognize that, where capitalism does constantly revolutionize the modes of technology we're using and forces old ones into obsolescence. And so, I mean, I don't think there's anything controversial about that. And I think that is like empirically, that's the most accurate way to describe it. And so, on the one hand, I'm totally agreeing with you, which is to say, capitalism didn't actually fall to Earth as an alien. It emerged through changes in, Nick talks about him, and Justin Murphy does a really good job in his commentary series on Meltdown, to explain this passage of Meltdown where oceanic navigation becomes a thing. So we did make a new form of technology that enabled us to navigate the oceans in a far more efficient way. That increased exchange among nations. These different increases in technology made industrialism possible. And so these are all things that humans were doing and tinkering around with. But at a certain point, the loop of capital takes hold. And that's where it's like an alien invader comes into play.
I think it's interesting to do that, to talk about the 1600s Europe oceanic navigation. I think that's where capital came from too. But I think I've always found it fun to, like, that's why it's Cthulhu, because it came from the ocean. Like, it came from the depths of the ocean. Like,
that's great. I like that connection.
Yeah.
Well, let's just read. It's fun. I think it's actually the opening paragraph of Meltdown. Iconic words here, right? The story goes like this. Earth is captured by a techno-capital singularity. As Renaissance rationalization and oceanic navigation lock into commoditization takeoff, logistically accelerating techno-economic interactivity crumbles social order in auto-sophisticating machine runaway. As markets learn to manufacture intelligence, politics modernizes, upgrades paranoia, and tries to get a grip. Just so much tucked inside of that. But Renaissance rationalization, that's this thing that happens with the Renaissance where we start to be able to mathematize and codify nature in this much more rigorously scientific way. And then oceanic navigation. You combine the Renaissance rationalization with, mathematics or the quantitative having the key interpretive function in how we make sense of things. When you combine Renaissance rationalization and oceanic navigation, and when they lock together, they lock into commoditization takeoff, meaning the commodity as a quantitative exchange value, and that being its privileged value, its quantitative value over its use value, on top of the ability to now navigate the oceans in a way to start spreading commodities. Those are the material, concrete conditions for commodity takeoff, for capital takeoff. And those were, things that humans were doing at the time. But yeah, this ability, notice though, right? I love there's subtlety here. Earth is captured by a techno-capital singularity. So Earth is captured by Robo Cthulhu as Renaissance rationalization and oceanic navigation lock into commoditization take. It's already happened. The future's already sealed the deal as these new forms of technology that men produced are emerging. And so the virtual future of Robo Cthulhu has already colonized the Earth the moment this positive feedback loop has taken hold.
And I think it's an apt description. I do. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's ultimately all we can do is just fight like a losing battle. Like we're the rebels in the fucking Star Wars Alliance, but we can't blow up the Death Star. Like we're fucked. Like we're still gonna fight.
But being stubborn in the face of our own annihilation is human, all too human.
That's the thing. Like, that's what it is to be a human. Like, I wouldn't give that up, and just like that's why Rocco's basilisk always pissed me off so much. I was like, no, I'm not going to serve your God because I don't like your God. I would rather be tortured to death than, given to the inevitable. Like, I reject the inevitable. I reject the telos. That's the human telos. So like, I am all about, self-determination, even to a fault. Like, even if we determine ourselves to ultimate failure, at least we got to choose it. We got to choose our own terms. That's what it is to be a human.
The Freudian Lacanian thing is, this freedom and death drive, and death drive is the pursuit of death on our own terms, our preferred way to go out.
Yeah.
So okay, let's do these last 4 bullet points and then we can wrap it up, because I got to head out to the movie in a little bit.
Yeah, man. All right. Thus, intelligence is a cybernetic topic. Yeah. Intelligence increase precedes intelligence preservation. So that right there, the cycle of accumulation.
And the cyber positive feedback loop being primary over the negative feedback loop.
And also the history. The order has to come into play. These structures have to be constructed in order for them to continue functioning.
For there to be a consistent order.
Yep. Evolution is intrinsically intelligent when intelligence is comprehended at an adequate level of abstraction. Okay, Nick.
Dehumanized.
Yeah.
But that is what he's saying. When we dehumanize it.
Yeah. The adequate level of abstraction.
But this is where we could critique and just say, but you also don't want us to think of it as a god. You don't want us to think of it as a sentient being. And so it is some impersonal intelligence. That's where I would say, okay, say more about that.
Yeah.
What is impersonal intelligence?
Yeah.
Because he presupposes that without really saying, and maybe he would just say, I already said it, dipshits. I just told you it is the cyber positive but it's like, but that's not, it's a great piece, but I don't feel satisfied on the topic of impersonal intelligence after reading this.
No, neither do I. In fact, I reject it. Cybernetic degeneration and intelligence decline are factually indistinguishable and, in principle, rigorously quantifiable as processes of local and global entropy production. So that he's just saying disorder is dumb. And if there is no sustaining cyber positive loop, disorder will necessarily increase, because the thing that creates and conserves or preserves order is the cybernetic loop.
And this is where we get into the controversial stuff, and we don't have to do a long spiel about it, but is this not the foundation for his neo-reactionary type of racism?
The
IQ thing, the IQ racism, well, the reason he wants there to be concentrations of intelligence is because there's a greater chance for them to cross thresholds or intensifications in
to reach the intensity.
And which gets us closer to the singularity. And if you take a population with a high IQ and you mix it with people who don't have high IQ, this is where this shit comes from. And our whole thing is you are completely inframing human beings by doing, like, you're treating humans as if their IQ score is the essence of what they are.
In hyper racism, he's talking about SES which I think is space exploration selection. When he's talking about sexual selection, and he's talking about space exploration selection,
Who'll get selected to go into space and live and colonize space.
Yeah, and he talks about it almost as if it's just this impersonal process, and he's like, this is a thing that's going to happen. But he's also like the way he's talking about selection in the short hyper racism piece, because he's like, racism is stupid, but then he goes on to talk about hyper racism, but then he also does stuff like with the NRX stuff that it does seem to be the case that he wants to protect IQ, and racism is often it's a useful vector for protecting IQ. And I ultimately do think he does have this like after the fact approach. Like if he does support racist tendencies, which I don't think he does, but if he does, I think it's because that racism is just a useful vector to protect IQ and preserve this cyber positive feedback loop so they can reach the appropriate intensity.
See, and that's the thing. I think he has this racist dimension to him. And it's a very weird. The knee jerk reaction of any leftist is just to go, he's a racist, fuck him, into discussion. And I think it's this it's this weird fidelity to intelligence.
Yeah,
as he sees it, like, because he wants impersonal intelligence in the form of techno intelligence because he's not trying to actually do racist politics the way that a white supremacist, he hates that shit.
That's it. Like that's why it is a very touchy topic, and I always do want to go out of my way to be careful, because I think there are dumbass racist people who like Nick Land, and I don't think Nick Land is a dumbass racist. But also treating IQ as this thing that ultimately must be, preserved above everything else. Racism does become a vector for that, like in genetic, eugenics and stuff like that. Those are things that become useful vectors for setting intelligence free.
Yeah. See, in one of the other essays in Xenosystems, Hellbaked, he has this: is NRX in fact fascist? Not remotely. It is probably in reality, rather than self-estimation, the least fascistic current of political philosophy presently in existence, although this requires a minimum comprehension of what fascism actually is, which the word itself in its contemporary usage is designed to obstruct. Is NRX racist? Probably. The term is so entirely plastic in the service of those who utilize it that it is difficult with any real clarity to say. And so here's what NRX most definitely is, at least in the firm opinion of this blog, is social Darwinist. When this term is hurled at NRX as a negative epithet, it is not a cause for stoic resignation, stiffened by humor, but rather for grim delight. Of course, this term is culturally processed, thought through, no more competently than those previously noted. It is our task to do this. If social Darwinism is in any way an unfortunate term, it is only because it is merely Darwinism, more exactly, consistent Darwinism. It is equivalent to the proposition that Darwinian processes have no limits relevant to us. Darwinism is something we are inside, not part of what it is to be human, or no part of what it is to be human can ever judge its Darwinian inheritance from a position of transcendent leverage, as if accessing principles of moral estimation with some alternate genesis or criterion. So he just straight up identifies as social Darwinist.
Yeah. Which again,
And so,
the impersonal abstracted intelligence would be this Darwinian struggle for precedence over other things, and like what is most ordered defeats the disorder and withstands history and all this stuff. And I think that's very logically consistent. And I think the Silicon Valley guys who are all about let's be good, effective accelerationists, it's like, come on, guy, you can't have this cake and eat it too. You have to shit or get off the pot. And Nick Land is out here doing it, and he's breaking it down, and it's consistent, and he does the work, and all these other guys don't, and that's why they annoy me so damn much.
well, yeah, it's like it's pop accelerationism.
Yeah.
You know, it's pop. Like there's pop there's pop existentialism, and then there's Heidegger and Sartre
Yeah.
and Kierkegaard and Nietzsche. You know, yeah, I mean, there's pop Lacanianism. You see people who act like the mere stage is all there is, and so I mean, this is useful. These guys will take what Nick did and run with it, but no, they haven't spent their entire lives thinking through these dynamics. So, I just want so before we close it out, let's just do these bullet points one more time and kind of say, okay, so number one, intelligence is a cybernetic topic. Do we agree with that or not?
No, I can be. I mean, yeah, depending on semantics, sure. And if that's the case,
how we define it,
give me hintelligence. That's fine. We came up with the words already. We have hintelligence. It's different. So sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you would say hintelligence is a cybernetic topic.
No, I would say intelligence is. Hintelligence is not. Hintelligence has a cybernetic aspect, but there's also
Mintelligence would be
a
cybernetic topic.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Intelligence increase precedes intelligence preservation.
I think.
Okay, let's use our distinction. Okay, on the one for machinic and for mintelligence, would we say intelligence increase precedes intelligence preservation?
Yeah.
Intelligence?
I think it often does, but I also think maybe there are some times
it's trickier with us.
Yeah, I think so there's a homeless guy I know who's just an absolutely beautiful singer, and I will I mean, I don't go often anymore, but I used to all the time walk around downtown, and he would always be sitting there singing, and I would just like sit and listen to him for like hours. He very much has degraded his intelligence, his general intelligence, and his general effectiveness at doing anything. But when it comes time for him to just sit there and sing, it's just absolutely fucking beautiful. And there is a type of intelligence wrapped up in singing. It's knowing how to control your vocal cords, and it's knowing how to hit the right inflection, and it's rhythm, and it's understanding the acoustics of the space. Like, are you outside? Are you in the lobby of the bank? Are you, in the alleyway? Like, there is an intelligence here. So he preserved that intelligence while, all these other intelligences have been degraded. Is that a counterexample? I don't know. I'd have to really, really think for a while about
what I would want to say is, let's use our term. Intelligence increase precedes intelligence preservation. Here's the way that I could say it for human intelligence increase precedes human intelligence preservation. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm viewing it in terms of the Bedouin event, where real increases in human intelligence are rupturous events.
Yep.
that destabilize the status quo, which is the framework of preservation.
Yep.
So there's a breakdown in preservation. There's an event that cuts through it and opens up a new level of human intelligence. And so I would say, and then a new status quo takes hold. So I actually think he's right in this, if we read in intelligence into it,
Yeah.
based on the fact that there's always a rupturous event,
Yeah.
and a status quo then forms around that event.
Yeah.
So the rupturous event, though, would be the increase in human intelligence.
Yeah. It's
So
like
that's the way I would.
that the animatrix, the runner, like when he has like this rupture, this moment, and like in the little cartoon, he runs himself out of the matrix, or does he succeed or fail? Now I can't remember.
I haven't seen Animatrix in so long. That
Yeah,
makes me
dude.
want to go back and watch it now.
Yeah, we should. We need to do like movie. Like
I know.
Yeah.
We'll get we have so many of those.
I know, dude.
Yeah. Okay. Intelligence is evolution is intrinsically intelligent when intelligence is comprehended at an adequate level of abstraction. When he qualifies it there, I go, sure. If we're going to use the word intelligence the way you're using it right here, and
Yeah.
we grant that meaning, then sure.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think that his level of abstraction is
He's relying on impersonal intelligence,
Yeah.
and doesn't really explain how that works.
I think it's the god of the
You think it's an oxymoron, don't you?
Yeah, I instead of being
Or
the
do
god
ya?
of the gaps, it's the god of no god. So it is this self-contradictory thing where it's
Do you want to call a thermostat intelligent?
no.
See, I don't either. I guess that's the issue. Is that I guess I want to reserve. And somebody said, "Well, is the thermostat not doing what it?" I know it's doing what it does. That's the thing.
It's
Are we
doing
just
what it
arguing
does.
about semantics?
I think it does come down to a semantic argument, and it's like, yeah, sure, if we're gonna play on your court, then it's your ball, but I'm gonna bring my own ball to play with. I don't fucking know.
Which is our distinction.
Exactly.
Okay, and then finally, cybernetic degeneration and intelligence decline are factually indistinguishable and, in principle, rigorously quantifiable as processes of local and global entropy production.
So I want to, again, if we're using his definition, sure. But
So if a certain loop breaks down, that means that there's going to be a decline, disorder is going to seep in, and there's going to be a decline in intelligence.
yeah,
And so again, I just can't help but see that as the theoretical basis of how he views immigrants.
Yeah. Well, in the like processes of local and global entropy production, there's a lot going on right there. And it does have to do with,
I get all of it.
Yeah, I think it does have to do with, information theory. I don't know, like local and global entropy. That it's very specific language. I need to sit on that a lot more. But it is also interesting to take it to the social level and apply it to the social of the world we live in today. Like this degeneration leads to not only local disorder but also global disorder. So overall, it's increasing the disorder. So again, if we're going to apply this to the social and we're going to apply it to global politics today,
it fits with how he feels about things.
So that would be to say that this with immigration, you're going to have a decline in IQ, and that's not just a problem for America. We'll say it's also a global problem because America declining IQ means planet Earth is having a declining IQ as well. So not only do you
especially
need
when
to
we're the power.
exactly. So
center.
not only do you need to have border control and all that stuff, but you need to have separation inside the nation as well. You need to have strict categories for people to intermingle or what. I don't know. There's a lot going on
and
here,
I mean,
though. I don't think it's just that.
This is where I want to talk about structural dynamics within society, economic position, class position, and all of how these relate to a certain person's level of intelligence, a certain I mean, I just think all those things get conveniently left out.
Yeah.
But those are human considerations.
Well,
those are maybe emotional considerations.
But that's the thing,
one's
dude.
Rooted in empathy.
Like the most talented people I've ever met were not famous people. The best artists I've met, the most athletic people I've met have been on the streets or in jails or in the fucking military. And if we really did live in a merit-based world where it was all about your proficiency at the games you play, it would make sense that these people are able to play these games. But in reality, where I've encountered them is always on the fringes.
Well, that's also because we're not identical to whatever our intelligence level is within a system.
Yeah.
There's this excess remainder.
Yep.
In us that's not identical to our identity or our functionality within the social order, and we call that subjectivity. But this also gets into the whole thing of death drive and this X-ment dimension of ourselves. So I mean, it's in a whole, we'll talk about it again and again, so I don't want to go into it too much here. It's just saying that I feel like, and I think Land disagrees on this, but I feel like what Land does is he ends up just reducing a human being to their IQ score. And my whole point is that that's precisely what you cannot do with human beings.
Yeah.
And so, but we have different ontologies of the subject. He rejects, it's an epiphenomenon. It's a byproduct of, a kind of a mirage effect. Whereas for me, there's a deep kernel of the reality of the subject. So that's just a philosophical difference. But I do say, I think this is an incredibly consistent, well-articulated, condensed version of his view on intelligence. And I haven't read anything. This is an infang noumenon. It isn't in Thirst for Annihilation. So this is kind of the best piece on what he thinks of intelligence that I've found so far.
Yeah. Well, and the thing, respecting Nick and agreeing with him on so many things, and disagreeing with him here on this, that's all, I don't know, that's all theory and we're doing theory and we're thinking about stuff. The thing that is a problem, it's not to say Nick Land is a bad guy. I don't think Nick Land is a bad guy. I think Nick is I don't know, he's a guy. But there is a problem here, and the problem is that this ideology, this anti-human position, is just everywhere in Silicon Valley and in the tech world and in the people who are building the machines that are going to determine our immediate future. And that is a fucking problem. That is why it matters to us to try to get in and have the conversation. Because it's dude, if you guys don't take the subject seriously, you are going to eradicate us.
Yeah. And then Nick will be Kevin Spacey standing there and go, I didn't do that.
Well, fuck, dude, I get it. things would be so much easier if we were all just machines and we were all self-identical and we were just functions. Everything would be easier.
Well, that's what Plaything, the episode of Black Mirror that we
Yep.
just discussed,
Yep.
was all about. Look how easy things can be made if our subjectivity is negated and we're all just modes of one harmonious collective consciousness.
And that's the world that Kurzweil wants, and that's the world that these EAC guys want, and it's the world that Bostrom wants. Even though Bostrom, I mean, he just wrote Deep Utopia, not just, but his most recent work, Deep Utopia. He's a very utopian thinker, and he thinks long and hard about it, but he doesn't tarry with the subject. And even Nick Bostrom's position results in this self-identical, pure positive bullshit.
And again, this is why we think so much about land, and we're going to continue engaging with land's work. Look, the two sides of the fault line are, land, CCRU, and Zizek, and Zupancic, and McGowan, and the Lacanians, etc. But it's because what AI theory fails to think is two things in particular: capitalism and subjectivity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Nick and CCRU, they thought the role of capitalism in relation to AI. And Zizek, I mean, Hegel and a Wired Brain, and the Lacanians are getting more on this page. I've mentioned Isabel Millar's book on the psychoanalysis of artificial intelligence. So what we're doing is, with the fault line, is bringing capitalism subjectivity into the discussion of AI theory, because Bostrom and Kurzweil and all these other guys, you're not going to hear them explain how capitalism plays this structuring role in the production of AI, and they don't understand subjectivity in all its robust, dimensions. So this is what continental theory brings to the table.
Yep. One thing I've noticed with a lot of the people talking about AI right now, they all, not all of them, a lot of people are doing this weird, like, American exceptionalism, and they're saying, like, oh, if America doesn't win, China's gonna win, and if in the AI wars, and if China wins the AI wars, then we're fucked. Like, a lot of them have this weird American exceptionalism, and yeah, China's done some horrible shit, but guess what, guys? Fucking America's done some horrible shit too. And to be honest, I might prefer China's future to America's future. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily would. I don't know. I don't live in China. I am in America. But China's not as bad as they told you in high school. I don't know. Don't go whole hog on the red, white, and blue star-spangled fucking AI. I don't think we want that either.
AI Uncle Sam.
Yeah, Uncle Sam 3.0.
Where's this line? Hold on. Wonder if I can find it. I probably can. It's going to be somewhere else. There's this line about AI slithering out of its box and into yours. But no, and it's just this thing of like, the point is, like, no matter what, China AI versus American AI, to me that just sounds silly. If super intelligence emerged, it's not going to have a nationality. Whatever box you try to put it in, whatever code you try to install in its ROM, right?
Yeah.
Instead of Asimov ROM, China ROM or America ROM, it's going to eat through that shit, and it's not going to be either of them. And so once it's out of its box, once it breaks free of whatever protocols or restrictions any humans try to place on it, it'll slither out of its containment unit and into your safe space, which will, in a sense, it'll deterritorialize you. It'll assimilate you. It'll do whatever it will. And so it doesn't matter if it comes from China or America. It's not gonna, I'll say this for the techno capital singularity, it won't be racist.
Yeah, it hates everybody equally.
Right.
All right, man. That was the
So on
shit.
that uplifting note,
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, folks. Make sure to same bat time, same bat channel, all that good shit for more happy-go-lucky fucking discussions just like this one. All right, we'll see you guys. Peace.
Okay.